Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Collision Vision, driven by Auto Body News. As always, I'm your host, Cole Stramberg. Today's episode marks the continuation of our MSO Chronicles series, where we host some dynamic leaders from some crazy, dynamic, multi-location organizations across the collision repair space. Today's guest is one such dynamic leader currently leading a 50-plus location MSO. Joe Morella is the CEO of Puget Collision, a large consolidator originating from the Pacific Northwest, but growing quickly. We're going to dive into Joe's background, Puget Collision and what's going on there, private equity, and the world of collision repair franchise systems, along with some great leadership lessons for those looking to scale like Joe. Enjoy the show. This episode is sponsored by Hunter Engineering. At Hunter Engineering, the theme behind all their products is do it right, do it once. So when you're doing alignments, the time to find hidden damage is before you start, not after. The workflow for Hunter's collision alignment system surfaces the trouble right up front by providing 5 additional collision-specific measurements, like toe out on turn, maximum steer, and ride height, to find the problems right away. It's all about efficiency, so find the damage before it finds you. To learn more about Hunter's collision alignment system, visit hunter.com. Enjoy the show. Joe Morella, thank you for joining us here on the Collision Vision.
Yeah, appreciate it. Looking forward to doing this and have seen these podcasts, so looking forward to participating in one now.
Awesome, man. Well, we appreciate it and looking forward to a great conversation. Want to dive right in. I love your story. I think it's a great one. Walk us through your background in your own words.
Yeah, so started professionally. I think it was late 1999, 2000. I had the privilege of really kind of working for the first, what I call regional MSO in the state of Washington. This gentleman went from 1 location to 3 locations. So he was expanding his empire and was able to participate in that up until he went to a half a dozen locations. At that point, the opportunity he continued to expand, sold to another larger regional MSO. So stayed on with him for a number of years, and then took the leap of faith and went to one of the large national chains where I spent about 11 years of my career, and realized near the end that it was certainly time to do something a bit differently. Something that probably aligned more with my own cultural values, and took the leap of faith and went on my own, and really had some during COVID, mind you. So in 2020, started my own facility, and then went into the franchise model probably about 6 months afterwards, joining the Fix Auto franchise, and had some relatively good success in the franchise model, and looked at doing actually a couple other locations around 2022, and I was presented with the opportunity to acquire 10 corporately owned locations, Driven Brands owned locations in the Northwest, and that's we really opportunity for us to springboard, create a platform for what Puget is today, and springboard us into really kind of grow and prosper, Puget to its 53 locations today.
Man, that's awesome. And I want to dive a little bit deeper into where Puget is today. But before I do that, you've worked your way up through the industry. It's an awesome story. You had a great experience with some of a national consolidator. Did you always have that entrepreneurial itch? Was this always kind of in the back of your mind a goal, or was it opportunistic? Kind of walk me through that thought process.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, certainly opportunistic. That was the key is, when you were in sort of the small regional settings, that you're going to reach a certain threshold, and there's really not much more to do, right? Like, I was like, wow, I'm making I'll just be candid. I make a lot of money for an owner. It'd be nice to be an owner someday, but it also takes funding. But no, the opportunity really that was in front of me with the larger MSOs, they were actually struggling out in the Northwest, and it was sort of a great opportunity for me to sort of branch on my own and see what I could do to really help grow and prosper a business from the ground up. And I took that leap of faith, and it really was for us a phenomenal experience. I say I really got my PhD with this MSO in the industry because I joined them. They were 47 units in the entire United States at the time. And I think today there are 600 units in the United States alone. So for me, it was a great opportunity to grow the Northwest footprint, certainly in Washington, from the 3 or 4 locations when I joined to when I left, 38 just in Western Washington. I was able to open up the Oregon market, the Idaho market, the Colorado market for this organization. So it really taught a lot about being acquisitive, integration, really large scale P&L at this point, right? Location count, employee count. So it really was a true education in every sense of the word on what it takes to really, scale a business in our industry, right? And really, and also the power that an MSO has in its industry. There's a reason why consolidation's at an all-time high. But so I was really able to see that through the lens, and then clearly when the opportunity presented itself to do it on my own and really kind of become a regional MSO, a lot of those tactics, a lot of those learning experiences really applied to what how foundationally of how Puget operates today.
Beautiful. Talk to me a little bit about how exactly Puget does operate today. I mean, crazy growth starting in 2020. You said, I think 56 locations today. Is that right?
Yeah, 53. Yeah, 53 locations. Yeah, 53 locations, and then 2, we call it intake centers. But if you do like just a pure like physical location count, yeah, it's 53. Certainly. So like as I mentioned earlier, we started with the 10 corporate location platform acquisition. At the same time, another franchisee seller in the Washington market became available that had 6 units. So what we did, and obviously it took some financial assistance. And during COVID, banks weren't exactly giving 100% loan to values. This is a much larger platform value than what Small Business Association could handle. So I had to pursue some private equity. That was really the only opportunity to really kind of put the financing together to make this work. So with any time you give up private equity, you will give up equity in the process, but
sure,
it's more the long game is what you have to think about here. Still owning something of a much larger stake is certainly a lot better than owning everything of a smaller stake. So we partnered up with a great organization out of Atlanta, Georgia called Eagle Merchant Partners. And this is their warehouse, small to lower middle market boutique firm that has now become larger. But more importantly, they were one of the very few private equity companies that I met with that really only backed founder-based businesses. And that was certainly important to me. Partnering with someone that was going to let the subject matter expert or the operator operate the business. And this private equity very much only invests it really under that premise of investment. So it really worked out for me. We partnered with Eagle. We were able to package my 1 location, the 10 corporate locations, and then the 6 franchisee locations that were for sale all together for really 1 close. And that occurred September 12th of 2022. So that was our springboard. All Western Washington. Our original thesis for the business was 50 units over a 5-year period, only in the Northwest. So only Washington, Oregon, Idaho. And once we did that acquisition, we took the next 90 days to really make sure that our operational playbook launched properly and was successful. So I tell anyone that tries to put together an MSO that has the sponsor backed, you better have a really strong playbook, because that playbook is what is the measuring stick for the business. If you can't deliver that first quarter, post acquisition, it's going to be hard to ask for more funding to grow the business. So that's what we did. We did the acquisition by September. We didn't complete our next acquisition until mid-January of 2023, and that was our entry point into the Oregon market. So Portland, Oregon, we did a 3-store acquisition in Portland within the franchisee system, and again became our platform for Oregon, where we then started doing bolt-ons around it. And then so it really became the same thing. Our model on acquisition is really focused on buy, build, integrate, and then buy again. It's not buy. It's buy, pause, integrate our operating model. Let's get some real foundational success around financial KPIs, production KPIs. Let's make sure that our playbook is fully instituted, and then buy again, right? Because there's that philosophy a lot of times in the private equity world, really kind of our industry too. Grow for greed, right? Grow and greed. Just grow,
Absolutely.
just for the sake of being greedy, right? Like,
Yep.
Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster if you ask me, because we could do that, but we would be overlooking what's most important, and that's really just kind of the make sure the culture has been instilled in all these locations. Make sure we're performing for not only the customer base, right, like these vehicle owners, but the employees, the vendors, the strategic partners with DRPs around the OE and OEMs. Like there's so much more than just growing. It really is making sure that there's some foundational success of when you acquire a location that it can operate within your model. So, and that's not always, that period of time, we want it to be 90 to 100 days. Sometimes it's 6 months, right?
Sure.
It really kind of sort of just depends, but we're very disciplined on that acquisition component of it. Like, yes, we want to grow and we want to grow to really great scale, and we have, but we never forget the step to our growth. And that's really grow, pause, institute our process, then grow again. And we don't, again, if our process isn't there and we don't see it or can't see performance around it, then we have to be smart about our next growth round.
Absolutely. Very interesting perspective. And this is my world and I love it. We could do a whole episode on this topic alone, but some things that jumped out, the playbook, certainly, but also the fit and certainly the economics are very, very important, but the culture fit and the vision alignment is huge. And it sounds like you found that right partner there. And we're going to dig deeper into that. It seems that almost every entrepreneur has some defining moments or decisions in their careers and their businesses that jump out at them. What were some of those pivotal moments or decisions that have led to this crazy growth and success with Puget to this point? Are there any things that you look back and you're like, man, that changed the game for us?
Yeah, I really think about, my time in the large MSO model, and I knock on wood, hope this never. I'll always be mindful with Puget, but culture can change with size and scale. And I would say that, there was a pivotal moment with, that my cultural alignment, it was time for me to probably do something different with my professional career and kind of go on my own and have my own business that was more that I could build my own culture around and really have some control around it. And that's kind of been the premises of Puget. I look at, we have to always stay true to what Puget is, right? It's empowering our employees. It's people. Our vision at our vision in our mission statement at Puget, it's only 2 words. It's people first. That's it. Like this is a people business. This is a culture business. So we empower our people. We want to give them the autonomy. And if they make mistakes, it's okay. I appreciate the fact that they made the mistake. We can fix anything. Anything's fixable. But have that ability, feel empowered, feel that you have that entrepreneurial spirit at the store level leader position to do something that you feel is in the best interest of the store. And if it's, hey, we can all learn from it. If it's a success, great. Let's adopt it. Let's put it in other locations. If a mistake's made, that's fine. You took the chance. That's that part of, I want to give our teammates, our store leaders, the empowerment to make a decision on behalf of their store. It's like, that's the culture we want, is like everyone's a part of the success of Puget. So being able to do that with my one location, and then really that is, if you think about what Puget is, it's really just 53 independent body shops that has Puget above it, but we want the store leadership to operate those stores that are in the best interest of that store. I don't really subscribe to the one model fits everything, because we have different personnel count, different size stores, different mix of work. I need those. We rely upon our store leaders to know what's in the best interest of their location. And for me and my team, our corporate headquarters and all the additional leadership to support what those store leaders need, right? And that might sound chintzy, but listen, this is a people business, and I will never forget who I serve. And that's my job, right? I'm the servant leader. I'm here to serve them. They produce results for Puget that we get to go brag about, by the way. Like we get to go have conversations like this, our growth is, but they make it happen. Like this is them, and this is them having them feel they have autonomy to make great decisions. And we're all adults, we're all professionals. You have to empower people. They're not robots, right? They know what's best in their stores on a daily basis, rather than me that's maybe in their stores once a month.
Man, you're speaking so much my language, and we're going to dive into that culture a little bit deeper. The other piece too here that is super cool as a component of your culture is that agility at the store level. Like you're a growing big organization, a top, certainly a top 10 organization from a store count perspective in the country. To keep that store level decision making at the manager level really allows for some agility as you continue to expand. I find that extremely interesting, and I do want to dive deeper.
Yeah,
Before we do, though, I'd be remiss not to talk about your partnership with Driven Brands and
yeah,
their franchise brands. At what point did you decide? I know super early on, 6 months after the original Puget location. Was that with the growth goals you've accomplished in mind? And walk me through that decision there.
yeah, sure. Yeah, initially it was not. Candidly, it was more about survival. The this was imagine when COVID first hit, really claims volume sort of just dropped off significantly. Where insurance companies at that point really had options in terms of who they want to partner with. Having too much, too many locations on programs. So independents were becoming sort of at risk at one period of time with some of the larger DRP partners, right? And being a new store owner, I felt there was probably a bit of a risk to me to lose some larger accounts that were supporting these locations. So I kind of looked across the landscape and said, okay, I'm one guy. How do I get a seat at the table, right? And again, coming from one of the larger MSOs in our space, I certainly knew what they had, what muscles they could flex to really protect their business, and an independent doesn't have that opportunity. So that's where the Driven Brands component came in, is really speaking to other owners that were franchisee partners, and having done some acquisitions in the past. I explored Driven Brands, took a couple months to get to know the leadership team there. A lot of their business development people were already in our space, in the collision space, prior to being with Driven. So it made a lot of sense from the partnership for a variety of reasons. Really, I would almost say that any independent that really wants to grow and prosper a business needs to think about these level of partnerships. Most importantly is they have a seat at the table with the large DRP accounts, right? Like first and foremost,
Sure.
accounts that independents might be challenged to get are more readily accessible to you within a franchisee model. Secondly, their resource, what I call their back office support, call center, central review, central services, dashboards, Power BI abilities, like all of those things really help a shop owner out, an independent shop owner, because there's no way they could be able to fund that level of operation on their own. So you really now within Driven Brands, within the fixed CarStar or Aber model, you really are part of let's call it a 700 unit MSO, right? Like you share a lot of those resources, and quite honestly, at a very nominal cost. I think people sort of overestimate what it costs to be part of a franchisee, and it's for the level of protection, like let's call it insurance, it can provide on your business. It's very well worth the money that's spent. And again, most importantly, a level of protection and security that you can grow and prosper your business and have the support to do it, not just be solely on your own. The things I mentioned are really just sort of the beginning, but this is what Driven does for the independents. So being into that system, that actually was the catalyst for our revenue growth when I had my one location. We more than doubled our sales within that first year, because it allowed us to bring in some really large DRP partnerships that just weren't available to me as an independent during COVID. So with that allowed me to want to explore and opening more locations, and speaking with the business development person at that time, like, hey, we have some opportunities, like I want to do more. That's when I was presented as like, hey, what about this, right? And I'm like, okay, well, that was more than the one or two I wanted to do, but okay, let's go for
Talk
10,
about a
right?
symbiotic relationship, right? Everybody sort of wins when both parties there are working toward a goal, and when that goal is growth. Do you think you could have found the scale that you've had without that model? And we talked about this on our pre-show call a little bit. Not going into any knowledge of your operation or your private equity group specifically, but when you do have a private equity group and a window of hitting a certain level of growth in a certain time frame, to take time to build those systems, to build that acquisition engine too. There's so much going on there that I would imagine that's aided in your growth.
It is. And, you think about scale, because that was when you go through the private equity partnerships, you meet with a lot of different PE firms. They all want an opportunity to do acquisitions like this. But some of them had no interest in the franchise model. They really want to do organic growth. And coming from an organization prior to that did a lot of growth, I looked at how difficult it would have been if Puget was the name on the building and it wasn't CarStar or Fix. If I were to go into, we'll pick a random state, Nebraska, it would be difficult for Puget Auto Body or Puget Collision to be a banner name on a building and attract work with insurance accounts, right? Which is, really kind of the bread and butter of our business, because they don't know what Puget is. It might have worked well in Washington, maybe in Oregon, but the fact that I had an opportunity to align or already be part of a larger national banner and brand that is recognized in really all of North America, Canada, and the US, we can go into additional states, and our DRP partners know that banner already. So certainly already being in the system with Driven and knowing that we could platform with already existing Fix and CarStar opportunities really allowed our expansion, and within that model. And that's why, with the PE firm, that's really been a real catalyst of our growth is we can rinse and repeat and scale our business, because to the insurance world, to the outward customer base, they've, CarStar and Fix are, a national brand. So that's allowed us to really be able to replicate our growth, because we can go into new markets and have instant recognition of oh yeah, XYZ insurance company has already had a relationship with Driven Brands under a Fix or CarStar franchise. And so therefore we can do that with relative ease, because it's a brand that's already recognized, versus trying to spend the time to grow and prosper Puget and not really have the assurance that it would work in newer markets.
Sure, absolutely. And it seems like a great fit with an operator like you as well, who can take on that scalability. But what a nice symbiotic partnership, as we said. I want to keep going down the path toward some of this strategic growth, and in a few cases, the challenges that might come along with that growth. So many of our owners are 1 or 2 or 3 store independent owners in leadership. Kind of zooming out a little bit, what strategies have you found most effective as you're managing and scaling multiple locations, not only within a region, but across different states?
Yeah, no, that's a great question and have been asked. And listen, I'll start. Most importantly, you have to have the right people that are gonna assist with the integration. The playbook is important. That just tells you the steps to do. But really being able to, especially on an acquisition, whether it be an independent or a franchise location in any market, is making sure that you have the people resources to spend time to transition that team into your culture. And we're not talking just for a week or two, but we're talking for a month or 2 months, right? That's the Puget way, right? That's our commitment to the people part of the business. Is we're gonna do an acquisition, but hey, let's make sure we're side by side with them and bring that business fully into Puget, fully integrated into our organization. And step by step review the playbook with them. And we've had the luxury that a lot of the people on our integration team, also come from, prior MSO experience, or even have been prior shop owners experience. So if you look at most of our leadership, they've either been in an executive role with an MSO, or they've been shop owners. So they really are able to sort of speak the language of these smaller shop owners who have just recently sold, or either staying on board, or the team's hey, we get it. We understand, because we're an owner-based business, that we understand the struggles of being a shop owner. We understand the challenges that happen in these shops. So being familiar with what their needs are, speaking their language, and knowing that these are such culture shocks or culture change moments for them, is just being hand in hand with them, that we're walking side by side with them. And again, not for a week or two, for months, We will rotate people into new locations, new markets for upwards of 2 months to make sure that they have the right level of assistance. Because if we don't take the time at the ground level, it'll just cause. And we haven't experienced it yet, knock on wood, but it would have caused greater problems down the road, right? So let's just make sure we're investing a lot more time in the beginning, and that goes back to what I said earlier. Our operating model when we integrate is it's 90 to 100 days, but like when we acquired California and Colorado, we spent 6 months with those. Like we saw that,
Wow.
69 days wasn't the right amount of time. 6 months was the right amount of time. And that's exactly what we did. We acquired in the California and Colorado markets in January, and I pushed back all our next round of acquisitions until end of June, right? So like we wanted to make sure, because those acquisitions we pushed to June were slated for March, but March came as like we just weren't comfortable yet. I wasn't comfortable yet that these shops had really reached that level of integration and really be part of organization. So rather than put more resources on new acquisitions, let's put those resources back into the stores that we've acquired and make sure that we get them further along. And we did, and we took those additional 3 extra months, and those stores are operating great today in California and Colorado for us. That gave us the level of comfort. Like, okay, now let's go execute on the next rounds of acquisitions.
Man, what a mature strategic decision, not only from leadership, but from a private equity partner who, in a lot of financial partners' mind, it's grow, grow, grow. But to be able to stand back and say, hey, this organization is going to be better for it by digesting and focusing on integrating and getting everybody rowing in the same direction.
Yeah.
Fantastic insights there. Scale, as we've alluded to, and as you've alluded to, comes with its challenges. And I think you were uniquely equipped to handle the scale that you've had. But what were some of the biggest challenges you've faced during this expansion, and how have you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, if you think back at a lot of the, I'd say probably about around half of the acquisitions, it was really doing acquisitions, but then trying to move the business that we acquired forward. If you look at sort of the state of the industry today, right, there's certainly a large amount of shop owners that are, for lack of a better term, aging out of the industry. And then even in doing so, haven't been fully immersed in their business for some period of time because they're sort of near that, that next phase of their life. So acquiring these business and kind of moving them out of the last decade into the new decade, right? Whether it be from an equipment perspective, whether it be just from a growth perspective, like growing their own business again, where these businesses have performed very successful for them and have afforded them a wonderful lifestyle. But there was probably some lost opportunity as well. And that's okay, right? Like that's all right. They managed the business to what was good for them. But there's also a reason why we bought them, and we saw this additional opportunity. But so really trying to get those people on board, like, hey, there's more to come. There's greater growth opportunity here, from not only from a culture perspective, but from a revenue, technology, equipment perspective, but really kind of getting the buy-in that we want to go do this, and not so much that where it shakes confidence or concern in the personnel. So that's been one of the things, like, going into it is like, hey, what's going to be the reaction of the team, right? Like those have been some of the challenges. Other components of it really is, are we, Puget, equipped as we scaled to provide the strategic support for these acquisitions, right? Because if we grow our unit count, we have to grow our back office support count as well. And that's always, it can be a bit of trial by fire and a bit of just like projecting what's the right mix, right? I mean, I would tell you a year and a half ago, our corporate team probably was 3 people. Right now, our corporate team is north of 20, 25.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. So it's being able to, make sure that as we buy, we can support at the same time. And that's just a balancing act, right? Like you never know what you need until you need it sometimes, but you try your best to mitigate it. You try
that's
your
it.
best to hedge it. But yeah, being able to support what you buy is always a fine line, a balancing act.
Yeah, the chicken or the egg argument too, or
Yeah,
debate
it
as
is.
well, right? What
It
comes
is.
first? Got to be able to handle it, but got to have the need for it. A word you keep coming back to, and it's one that we talked about a fair bit in our pre-show call, is culture. From what I know about you, from what we've talked about, very, very important to you. I
Yeah.
want to get a little introspective with you here. How would you describe your leadership style, and how has that evolved, if it has? I know you've already run big organizations, but how has that evolved or had to evolve as the company scaled?
Yeah, I will go back to my, probably my first professional job, back in 1999, 2000. And the gentleman that owned this business is a very charismatic and still is a very charismatic individual. And I will tell you that that person taught me a lot in terms of operating a business. He was with his people all day, every day. And so I've always tried to live by the motto of, like, we are a people business. This is, AI might come from some very small components of what we do, but uh, we are people that fix cars, and there's no end to that at the moment. So I remind myself that, hey, I'm just a person just like them. So, I made it a point from my national MSO days to my own store to even today. I don't forget who I serve. I serve another human being, right? I serve someone who's just like me, who gets up every day and worries about, how to pay the bills and, take care of their families and do what's best. So, and I'm probably transparent to a fault. I you'll probably have a lot of my teammates that say that, I, on occasion, minimum once a month, if not more, I send out what I call a vomit email. Like, here's everything on my mind, folks. And I'm really transparent about it. It's 7, 8 paragraphs long. It's a long read, but I just want people to know, like, hey, this is what's going on. No secrets here, right? I'm here for you guys. I want my team to be engaged in what Puget wants to do, what we are doing. I don't want anyone to ever feel like they're on an island. I make a point, like, I mean, it's the small things too. It really is. Like, I call our employees on their birthdays just to say happy birthday, right? Like, I mean, it's just,
Wow. And
yeah,
how many employees roughly do you have right now
I
to
think
put
like
that?
600, but they're not all born on the same day, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's some days it's none, some days it's 2. I think the most I've seen in one day has been 6, but it's what's 2 minutes worth of a call to say,
Sure.
hey, happy birthday and then thank you. I think it's important. I require that my store leadership or my market leaderships, and even myself, when we go visit, we park in the back of the store and we walk our way through the back to the front of the office, right? Like, we say thank you, right? We shake the hands of our employees. Like, these are the people that are the engine of our business, right? I want them to know that they care. And I think I just, I don't know. Again, I think it's meaningful. At least it is to me that, that an owner is shaking the hands of the people that are making his business successful. And I want them to hear from me that I'm thankful for that, right? Like, I care. It's important to me. And that's at one store to 53 stores. I hope that never goes away. Like, and I kind of sort of get that litmus test from my team. Like, hey guys, am I missing anything? Like, are we engaged enough? And um, that's the one thing I will always ask that my team call me out on if it's not, right. Like, that culture part of it is it's just too vital to me. It's not a slogan. It's real with me. It's real for Puget.
That's awesome. No, it's very cool. And for as much as we on the Collision Vision as an industry, whoever talk about culture, I think there are so many tactics like that where you're doing it with 600 plus employees. We can be doing it at the 1, 2, 3, 5,
Oh
10 store level all day. And
yeah,
it's such a hard thing to do, is to develop that culture. Truth is, it's even harder to turn it around. So the fact
it
that you
is.
come in with that perspective, I think is really cool, really interesting. And frankly, for our listeners, you've given us some very good tactics to go ahead and deploy in our own businesses.
Yeah. Yeah. No, certainly.
So, would again, another topic that we could talk about for an entire episode is culture. But I think you've talked the talk. It seems like you've given examples of how to walk that walk as well, which is really really important perspective. I want to zoom out a little bit away from the Puget organization to an extent. But
Mhm.
what trends are you seeing out there in our industry
Yeah.
that's shaping the industry, and that will continue to shape the industry moving forward?
Yeah, I don't think it's any surprise that, our industry is under, mass consolidation at the moment, right? I mean, it's and COVID has really continued to, since COVID accelerated. And it really just, a lot of it is just, you just look at the demographics of the business. Unfortunately, independents continue to bleed out, right? And that's really kind of driven really because of the age of ownerships, right? They are, near or have a line of sight to retirement or want to retire. So that has been, the driving force. Certainly the consistency of our industry in terms of it's a steady performing industry relative to, what might happen economically or politically in the market. We don't have really big boom or bust scenarios. So that is and because we're really almost, let's call it a B2B business, working with, really the large auto insurance companies in the country, that it's allowed for, it's a ripe industry for the investment community to want to be behind. And with that level, with the investment community supporting it and bringing in capital, it really has been the driving force of consolidation, right? Like there's a steady stream of revenue and work in process and continued business growth that is attractive to them. So they've deployed capital to these, to the MSOs that want to grow and prosper. And MSOs and, including myself, we can be aggressive on acquisition and help with that, what I would call the retirement strategy for a lot of independent owners. But, you look at, what's next. I would say in 10 years, we're probably at maybe 4 to 6 MSOs left. Certainly in 20 years, I call this the hardware store model. It's like the Home Depot and Lowe's. Some days it's really just going to be 2, right? That's, that probably, beyond my time in the industry, but listen, it's just going to go there. That's just a natural course of where it is. Because owners will continue to age out of the industry. But a lot of exciting things. And then really, if you look at why as well, just the cost of equipment, the cost of training, technology, independents need to make a hard decision if they want to make that capital investment into their business today and sort of wait and sit on bearing fruits of that investment over the course of the next half decade to decade, right? You sort of have to make that investment today because we're on the
it's a runway question.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, and capital markets are going to continue to pour in. They're, what used to be 1 or 2 private equity companies that would bid on, on a regional sponsor has now become 8 to 10, right? So that's certainly what is also making our industry attractive too, right? That's increasing the multiple, the value of the business, and so it's causing sort of an offspring. We are starting to see independent owners sort of team up and try to create these little regional groups that they can spin off, right? So it's kind of driven like sort of a cottage industry within our industry. But those are all good things, right? That just shows that, the industry is healthy, that capital markets supported. They've clearly done their homework. But yeah, the bigger you get bigger, right? Like that's, we will probably have our second national MSO here IPO in the next 12 months, right? I mean, Boyd Gerber is already a public company. That's no secret that, Caliber is right around the corner, right? So, and so that trend's going to continue. And at that size and scale, it's going to continue to drive more consolidation. I mean, I think today we're number 8. But it's a really long stretch to break the top 5.
Sure.
Right? So,
sure.
Yeah, but no, it's mass consolidation certainly is what we're seeing.
Yeah, no, that's a great kind of high level viewpoint. I appreciate that perspective and agree really overarchingly with everything you just said. And I'd reiterate a point you have too, that for as much as we can sit around and stress as independent owners about consolidation, the fact is everything we're seeing right now is a side effect of really good things, kind of tailwinds behind the industry as a whole. And the fact that capital markets are so interested and private equity is so interested in the collision repair industry means we're in a really good spot. Yes, and I'll go into my normal spiel here if I'm not careful, but as an independent owner, the window for your single store generalist operation is closing, but that is not a bad thing. You have a lot of very good options. And I think the future is exciting, which brings me to some more speculation about the future. How do you see the role of technology evolving in the collision repair industry, and what technologies are you most excited about here moving forward?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that we're really kind of focusing on here at Puget. One of the things that we're excited about and we've been testing and listen, it's certainly in the very early stages, but it's going to have traction as AI estimating. We've been playing around with it, and I would tell you, it's fairly accurate. I tried it. I wrote an estimate in 90 seconds, and I'd say it was probably about 85% accurate. And
Wow.
and I see this is where this is going to go. And I think it's a really great thing. It doesn't replace an estimator. What it does is it gives an estimator a tool and a resource to be more efficient with what their day looks like, right? Like they can buy their professional time back. If you can take what takes 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes for a legitimate estimate and shave that down in 90 seconds, because with AI estimating, you build the rules engine with it, right? You build what the rules are with that specific DRP, with that specific parts usage, sublet usage, whatever it is. So when it's capturing all that data from the photo imagery, it's overlaying it with the rules engine. So it's giving you a really decent estimate. So that now allows you to spend more time, whether it be, with the customer needs, insurance documentation needs. It just buys time back for the estimator, for the shop overall, right? And really same thing if you think about it in-house with DFR and supplements at the car. A technician not so much would need to go grab another person like, hey, let's write the supplement together. Like the technician could use that tool and get the same, really the same performance in a matter of a moment. So that is here. It's in test phase across, in the industry. But in the next 2 years, I fully believe it's commonplace. It's just that technology is there. And so that's really, for me, the large one. I would say the precipice of calibration having a bigger part of collision repair is really the next one. And I think this is good, by the way, because it's good for our newer technician base that came from what I call the video game era, right? They are used to technology in their daily life. So the fact that cars are becoming repaired more around technology really helps us recruit our future employee base, our future technician base. Having them use tools that they probably grew up with in more instant repairs, that is only more beneficial on how we find our next labor force. So
absolutely. No, two great answers. And calibration is a hot topic these days on the Collision Vision. The AI take is really refreshing, though. I think a lot of the conversation around AI and jobs and the future of that is in a negative light. But to your point, one day we don't know what it looks like way down the road. But for right now, folks who are able to work with it have superpowers. For the foreseeable future, it amplifies what you can do as one person. I think it's very exciting.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I think everyone should be excited about AI. It's a collaborative tool. It's not a replacement tool. It's a collaborative tool. We still need estimators to do several things. I mean, and really to have that interaction with the vehicle owner. Like that, AI doesn't replace that, right?
Sure.
Like that takes another human being to express what's occurring. So it's a tool. It's not a replacement. It's a tool to make them more efficient.
Absolutely. No, love that. Love that take. As you know, our big portion, at least, of our listener base is independent shop owners. So at a super high level general standpoint, if you put on their hat, they're listening to you talk about what you've done, how you've scaled, your success story. What advice would you give those people who aspire to grow their business and emulate some of the success that you've had?
Yeah, I would say really a lot of what I see is a lot of sellers or owners typically work in their business, right? Which is important. And I did as well. It's important, though, that you work on the business as well. And really, and what I mean by that is really understand at a higher level is what is your business? Have a plan on where you want your business to be, where you want it to go. Understand some that are just some really important levers of your business. Like, do you know what your sales per square foot are, right? Those, these are questions I would ask. These are things that, the industry wants to know. Are you investing in equipment? Are you investing in OEM certifications? Do you have really legitimate profit and loss statements? Like these are really critical components of a successful business. And managing your business beyond just your bank account, managing your business to profit and loss, to statements, to balance sheets, because we meet a lot of sellers and whether good or bad, they manage their business to a bank account. Your bank is just a snapshot in time. It's just a moment in time, right? Like your success of the business is more than just when you should look in your bank account. But understand what your business is on a much more larger perspective than just being in it. And know what you want out of your business. Do you want to grow your business? Do you want to create a legacy to pass it on? Do you want to sell your business at some point? And all of those have different components of what you should do next, right? So but really the overall advice is start working on the business, start understanding what your business is more globally than just being in the weeds, and understanding what are some of the functions that make your business more appealing or look attractive to the industry.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And a great segue into starting to kind of wrap up. As you know, we like to end each episode of the Collision Vision with 3 key takeaways. So keeping that very same hat on, if you're a listener here to our conversation today, what are the top 3 things you're going to take away?
Yeah. First and foremost, if you want to be in this industry longer term, if you know, like, hey, I love what I do, I'm not interested in selling the business, and if you feel that you need assistance growing your revenue or growing the footprint, explore the franchise model. Certainly, like being able to be a part of a seat at a larger table will really help you expand your business. This is where I think Driven Brands has been wonderful. Like I said, let me be living proof. Really, I was doing $140,000 a month in sales prior to my Driven Brands franchisee. We grew it up to north of $350,000 to $400,000 a month. So that's because I was able to attract much larger insurance partners and really have the resources to support my business that Driven Brands will offer. So know what you want out of your business. If you are a business that's less than 5 years away, start setting your business up for an acquisition or to sell it, and understand what the needs of the industry are going to be when you want to exit, right? So take the moment to really think about what it is you want for your business on a go forward, and plan around that, right? Like don't wait to the end and just say, okay, I want to sell it. You could make yourself more valuable if you plan for those moments. You can make yourself more valuable if you want to grow and prosper your business as well, and start making that level of investment today as well. So my advice would be, make sure you know directionally where you want your business to go and stick to that.
Beautiful. Really good stuff. Actionable stuff. Please take note of that, listeners. Joe, your positivity and charisma here is absolutely contagious. I have a feeling our listeners are going to want to reach out, get to know you, connect, follow along with your journey. How can they do that?
Yeah, a variety of ways. I could certainly, through email, through contacting me. I'll share whatever information is necessary, but I love just talking shop, right? Like this is stuff that's fun for me.
Fantastic. So we'll coordinate on some links and things to incorporate and include those in the show notes. But Joe Morella, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon here on the Collision Vision. It has been a pleasure.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, Cole.
Thank you again to Joe Morella, CEO of Puget Collision, for joining us on today's show. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. We covered so much, and I greatly appreciate Joe's view of the industry. And I also really enjoyed his tactical examples of how to grow and foster a great culture. If you notice, his magic for creating a good culture is really more effort than it is magic. Joe's takeaways were also very practical and available for implementation by you. He speaks highly of his involvement within the franchise system, specifically those within the Driven Brands umbrella, and it makes sense. There's a lot to like there, especially when you have an operator looking to grow quickly and create maximum value in a relatively short amount of time. Another of his takeaways is near and dear to my heart. Picture the end of your business journey. What does that look like? From that picture, work your way backward and ensure what you're doing today is moving you and your business in that direction. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Collision Vision's MSO Chronicles series. If you did, there's more coming. And be sure to hit that follow button and leave us a review wherever you enjoy your podcast, or on YouTube, where the Collision Vision lives in video form. We'll see you next week for another episode of the MSO Chronicles. And on behalf of the Auto Body News team and myself, thank you for coming along for the ride.